Welcome to the first video of this series. This is box 1 of the 10 box audit framework. I'm going to be giving you some practical tips and tricks, so grab a pen and paper or whatever you like to take notes with, and let's get started. When I first started my consulting business, I was oversubscribed within 6 months, but there was one farm I simply couldn't turn away. They had experienced a death on their farm. It was a neighbour who often shared equipment with them. And WorkSafe had recommended that they give me a call to help get their safety and compliance in order. 3.5 years later, they were cleared of all charges. But emotionally, mentally, it's something that will live with them, all of them, for the rest of their lives. And it's why I'm so passionate about encouraging farmers to be proactive about safety and compliance, because you never want to go through that. So that's why we start with first box, duty of care. It's your foundation. It's an understanding of your responsibilities. And if you get that right, everything else just fits into place like a jigsaw puzzle. What is duty of care? In plain English, you are the person conducting a business. You are the farmer, you are the business owner. And it's your duty to ensure that everybody that visits your farm or works on your farm is kept as safe as reasonably practical. Reasonably practical is where you ensure that you do everything you possibly can, given what you know or should have known, to ensure their safety. This is what will save you if the worst happens. Sadly, I have been involved in way too many audits and investigations, but I've used that knowledge and that experience to put together a 6-part checklist for this section, duty of care, and ensure that you cover off all aspects. These are the things that auditors look for first. The first one is that the health and safety of your workers and visitors is a priority. This is not just a value on the wall. This is how you talk about it, how you act each day, how you lead the team. And auditors will interview your workers or your visitors or whoever was involved in the incident or not. So what would your workers say about you making health and safety a priority? What examples would they give? The second one is that safe systems of work are in place. This is a systematic way of doing things, not a folder that nobody reads. It's a habit. It's how people perform that job and task in a safe way every time. So have a think about, walk around your farm and have a think about the riskiest tasks on your farm. It could be cleaning out a silo or handling livestock, or working in the chem shed or spraying itself. It could be working under machinery. It could be working under overhead power lines. List them all down, but also get the team involved. Whenever I visit a new farm, one of the first questions I ask all of the team individually is, what's the riskiest task that you do on this farm? And they always contribute, and the owners are always amazed at what they reply. Amazed is probably a big word, but they are enlightened with what they reply with, and then that becomes a priority in terms of getting that risk checked and fixed. So take a walk around your farm today and start jotting them down. This is an ongoing list. It shouldn't just be a do it today and then forget about it. And when we get to next week's video, box number 2, risk management, we'll talk about how to manage those risks. But for now, let's just get them down on paper. The next one is that safe plant and structures are maintained. This is one that you probably walk past every day, and so you've probably stopped seeing it as a problem. These are also the ones that auditors can easily see when they visit your farm. And believe me, they do not miss a trick. This can be your sheds, your yards, your house structures, your laneways, your fences. Make sure that everything is well maintained, your shearing shed floors. So this is where you walk around your farm, and whilst you're walking around your farm thinking about the riskiest tasks, also jot down things that need maintaining. Put your builder's cap on. Assume that you are a builder and you're looking for work on this farm, and you want to write down as much work as you possibly can. Write down these things so that then in one of the next videos, we can walk through these and start maintaining them and start looking at ways to fix them. A really sad example of this a few years ago is that a piece of flapping tin on an old shed finally came off in high winds and killed a cattle farmer. If you know that there's something that needs fixing, that's a problem. You need to be onto it and you need to be maintaining it. The next one is adequate training and supervision. Have you ever thrown a backpacker or anybody onto a tractor without giving them any training or supervision? If you answered a sheepish yes, you wouldn't be the only one. No wonder our work cover premiums are so high. This is where the accidents happen, and all for the sake of giving them a good little training session at the start and sitting in with them. It actually astounds me because the equipment that farmers own is bloody expensive, and whilst you will spend that money on the equipment, you won't spend the time on training your person. So please just take the time to do a little bit of training and supervision. Again, we'll go through that in more detail in a future video on training. But think of it this way, even a Ferrari owner wouldn't allow somebody to just jump in their car and drive it. And most of their Ferraris are probably cheaper than the equipment that you're putting these backpackers into. So take the time, invest in their safety and invest in your machinery. Training really starts in the hiring process, and we'll go through that in more detail in a future video. But for now, I just want you to jot down what sort of training you do and what you feel you do well, and how often you would sit in the cab with a worker, even if they've been there for a few years. Just a matter of sitting in the cab with them and making sure they haven't picked up any bad habits, or passing on that knowledge that you have, because it's invaluable what's in your head. We need to get that out on paper. An auditor will look at a few things when they first come out to a workplace injury, and one of them is a competency assessment, and most farmers don't know what this is. Essentially, it's you having trained somebody in safe work procedures and then checking in to ensure that they're actually following that training that you gave them. I've put that into a digital form and it's for free. It's on our website, peopleinpaddocks.com.au, so you can grab that and do that while you're in the cab with them. But it's really important that we do these, even if you just start by sitting in the cab with somebody. Watch how they get into the cab, watch that they're checking all the controls, they're doing a pre-start check, that they're attaching equipment safely and that they're checking for pins, etc., that they are arriving in a paddock safely, that they're not parking under overhead power lines, that they're unfolding correctly, and ensuring again that everything is secure and safe. So just checking in on people, and it's not a matter of micromanaging, it's a matter of looking after their safety and also looking after your equipment, and also covering your duty of care should something go wrong. Number 5 is a safe working environment. Now this includes the physical environment and the psychosocial environment. We're going to start with the physical, and this is where everything comes together. You've now looked at what the riskiest tasks are, what the structures and equipment what state they're in, and what needs fixing. And so now this is your whole physical environment and ensuring that everything's kept tidy and neat. I was once called out to a farm to help them improve their culture and work ethic amongst their team. And whilst I was out there, I sat with each of the workers in the team one-on-one, and the majority of them were asking for pay rises. And I was like, are you kidding me? Have you looked around this place? It needs a cleanup. It is disgusting. It's a disgrace. And I asked all of them why it was like that and why they hadn't cleaned up. And they all had their own excuses. And the main one was the manager doesn't want us to. It was like, rightio, okay, I'm sure that's not the case. So we had to talk about that as a team. And we gave them ownership and gave them jobs to do, and they created jobs themselves to do. And I couldn't be more proud of this team. Over the following weeks, they would send me photos of befores and afters. They became really proud of their own environment, so much so that that farm turned around and we were able to use that farm for a WorkSafe video. So get your team involved, have a look at your whole physical environment and where they're working. Is everything tidy? Can things be put away? Are you the problem? Are you the reason that people aren't being proactive about things? Are you a bit precious about that scrap metal? Does it need to be cleaned up? It doesn't need to be thrown away necessarily. It just needs to be put in a safe place. So have a think about your whole environment, your physical environment, and get your team involved to start helping you. Psychosocial hazards are the other side of keeping our environment safe. whilst they've always been important, they haven't been legally mandated, and now they are. It's part of your duty of care to ensure that everybody is mentally healthy and well at your workplace, and that something from your workplace is not causing them distress. It astounds me that we all go to a doctor if our body is sick, well, most of us, that we get our tractor serviced if it's not right. But if we're struggling with our mind, if we're fatigued, if we're carrying the weight of a bad season, if we're isolated, or in a tough situation, we just push through. And that's what psychosocial hazards are those mental capacities to continue on. And it's the damage that you just can't measure. And it's a really important aspect of your duty of care. There's a really great course called the Mental Health First Aid. Just like a first aid or CPR, there's a mental health first aid course now, and I highly recommend it. At the risk of telling you too many stories, when I did my mental health first aid, I had gone through the online training videos and was due to have an online seminar with them the following day. But in between, I had a performance review that quickly turned into a mental health assessment, and I needed to get her help. She was considering suicide, and we were able to get her to a GP that afternoon. That happened a few years ago, and I'm happy to say she is thriving now and in a manager role. And I just followed that mental health first aid course to the T. It was fresh in my mind. I followed through all the steps. The farmer with me was gobsmacked at some of the things that I needed to say or questions I needed to ask her, particularly in relation to suicide, because his understanding was that we should never use that word. That actually puts that thought in their heads. And that's how we've been brought up, I guess, but it's not the case when you come to mental health first aid. We need to help them through that process and to acknowledge what they're going through and to get them the support that they need as soon as possible. So I highly recommend doing that mental health first aid course, particularly for somebody in your team. There are lots of other things that fall under that psychosocial hazard part too, and they can be bullying, harassment, fatigue, isolation. We need to ensure that we have a policy in place, rules in place for all of these things, and that we go through those hazards with our new people when they first start, and then we talk about them regularly. We need to remember that our workers are people too, and we spend a massive chunk of our time at work. So engage in those morning coffees. Don't see them as a waste of time. See them as building a rapport with your people so that you do understand where they're at mentally and physically. Have those monthly barbecues and get to know your people. Make sure that you contact the family and friends if you've got a big barbecue coming up or a staff get together. Why not invite the whole family too, and watch your productivity increase as you start to show more interest in your people. Number 6 is I've added farm signage in place. If a visitor comes to your farm, do they know what to do, where to go, how slow to travel down your roads? It's the easiest one to get right. So it's something that you can do today by starting with this walk that you're doing around the farm. You're going to get your steps up. Is to go to your front gate and start walking through and have a look at places where signage could be if it's not already, or where signage can be improved. I'm going to give you some examples and pictures as we go through this from both a corporate farm and family farm aspect, so you can see the ultimate of what you could be doing and what we need to be doing to ensure that we're giving as much information as we can. So let's start at the front gate. At the front gate, we essentially need to be telling that person how they can stay safe on our farm and what we expect of them and what sort of things they can encounter on our farm or what's on our farm. So starting with your name, your partner's name and phone number, and the UHF channel that you're on, so they can switch over as soon as they get to your farm. You will also put down there, text John or Sally on arrival, or call us if you've never been here before. Really important that you always know who's on your farm. We'll also put on there some warning signs such as machinery, beware of machinery moving around, livestock, dogs, overhead power lines, and we also put down there our most hazardous chemicals that are on the farm. This is particularly important for the fire brigades if you were to have a fire on your farm, that they can see before they even enter your property what they're dealing with. So I'll give you some examples, and you can see some here in what to put on at the front entrance and what a sign might look at. Next one, as you're driving through, walking through the farm, are speed signs. We want to make sure that we keep people to a minimum speed. Don't be afraid to put 5, 10, 15, 20k. And if anything, we want them driving as slow as possible. Conditions can change. Sheep can get out, trees can fall over. You might have gates closed that aren't normally. There might be frost. So just ensure that you're putting the lowest speed possible to ensure that the safety and also the cleanliness, so you don't have dust flying all around your farm, is thought about. Then as they drive through, there might be some overhead power lines, so we need to put a sign there to alert them to the overhead power lines. You might have the evacuation point visible as they're driving through so that they can see if there is an emergency. It comes back to their mind where they actually saw that evacuation point. We're then going to move to, say, a chem shed. So in your chem shed, you'll have the doors closed and locked when they've arrived, because that's how you always keep them. And you will have signage on the front. So here are some examples of signage on the front of a chem shed. Essentially, you want to just give them a warning of what's inside and what they're dealing with, and that there's moving machinery, etc. in the area. Then when we open up the chem shed or a workshop and we go inside, we need to have visible a first aid kit, and we need to have signage to say this is where the first aid kit is. Same with fire extinguishers and same with PPE. For our PPE, you want to make it visible and say here is the PPE, and make it accessible to everybody, particularly ones that are going into our sheds and need access to it. And always keep, we'll go through PPE in a later video, but always keep your stocks up. We also need to have a spill kit wherever there are fuels, chemicals, oils, anything that could spill that's hazardous. We need to have a spill kit. Now that spill kit doesn't need to be one of those expensive bins with nappies in it. It could be a drum with sand and a shovel. But again, you need to have a big sign laminated on it that says spill kit, so that somebody can just cover up the spill when it happens. Now in your workshop, there's lots of signage that needs to happen, and the further you go, the safer you're going to be. From my experience in a corporate farm, we went as far as putting down pedestrian lines, etc., and just made sure we'd covered all bases. You might have a pit, so you need to put signage up, and you actually need to put a barrier that stops people from falling into that pit and ensure that the lid's on at all times. You might have some storage racks. Those storage racks need to be bolted to the ground, and you need to have a safe work limit sign on them in terms of how much those signs, those barriers, those pallets, racks can actually hold. Then you might have some oils, etc. Good to have them up on bunding. Again, we'll go through that in a later video, but also having signage around there. You've got your PPE signage, obviously. You might have hoists, etc., which you need to have signage of. Just think about what's new to a visitor. It could be a contractor who's coming in to service your machine. They've never been there before. You need to guide them in terms of what's where and what to be careful of. You could have a moving machinery sign up as well if you have forklifts and telehandlers that come into your workshop. Then you also need a staff notice board. So this is here and also in your staff area, wherever they can stop to have coffee and take a break and go to the toilet, whatever it might be. You need to have a staff notice board. And that staff notice board needs to have your emergency contact numbers. Again, it could be a contractor that's come in and doesn't have your number in their phone or doesn't have your partner's number in their phone. They need to know the local hospital numbers, etc. You also need to have on there work cover information, so who your insurance provider is. Now that's different around different states. In Victoria, we can choose our work cover provider. In other states, you just have the one. But having access to that is really important. Having who you refer on as a free mental health number to call, and there are plenty around. TIAX is a really good one that I like to recommend because they're specific for the blue collar industry and particularly for construction and farming. So it's one that we've had a lot of success with. So here's a picture of an example of a notice board. It's a bit old, so there's new things that you can put on there, but really just making it plain and simple. So if there is, for instance, a CPR situation, that who knows how we'll react in a situation or a trauma. So having some instructions there is always good. Box 1, duty of care, is your foundation. Start this week by walking around your farm and starting to jot a few things down and start getting a few things in order. Most farms are doing a lot of these things already. It's the documentation that lets you down. So if an auditor comes around, they actually want to see it documented and they want to see it in place. So it's a dual action. Even if you've got a diary, use a diary and write things down, but then make sure that everybody is following through and that you're following through, most importantly, and leading by example. Box 2 next week is risk management. So we'll talk about those risks and how to manage those. Safety systems are traditionally complex, expensive, and never used by workers, which is the key to compliance, is ensuring that your workers are actually using your safety systems. That's why I developed PIPA. It's a simple workforce and safety system that's dyslexic friendly and multilingual and already winning awards. PIPA's features are aligned to ISO WHS 45001 and also data accredited by the National Farmers Federation. There's a free version, so you can check it out on our website, just here. I've done all that research for you and bottled it into an app, which is getting a 98% uptake rate by workers at the moment. So no excuses. Put something like PIPA in place today and you'll find that your workers will start using it, and your family and your team. It's built for family farms, even without any staff. As always, have fun and stay safe. We'll see you in the next video, which is Box 2, Risk Management.